Barcelona are not winning a Champions League. Barcelona undoubtedly have the best young core in Europe right now. You have Lamine Yamal, who at his age is already a top three, top five player. I think you have to give credit to what Mbappe and Haaland and Dembele are doing right now as the World Cup's going on, and just in general, I think they had better seasons than him. Sue me. But you still have to give credit to him and how decisive he is in some moments. And then you have the likes of Pedri, who is finally looking like he's healthy again, and honestly dictates a game. And I think the stats don't do it justice because if you just sit down and watch just 45 minutes of a Barca game, you see how much the game flows through him and how much he controls the tempo of the game. And then you have the likes of Kubarsi, who at the age of 19 is playing like a 28-year-old center back with three Champions Leagues and a World Cup under his belt. He's unreal. And then, I could keep going on. Balde is world class. Fermin Lopez is just developing into such a clinical player. And the future looks so bright. We're now winning a Champions League this year. If you look back just 3 years ago to the 22-23 season, we had just been relegated to the Europa League for the second year in a row. Yeah. We hadn't won a La Liga since 2019. And it was looking pretty tragic. It was looking pretty scary. Granted, there was some improvement. Xavi had somewhat turned the lineup around. We weren't starting Aubameyang and Serginho Dest. But we still had our struggles. We were playing on Thursday nights, and I was getting flamed at the lunch table at school every single day. It got to the point where it felt like a chore to watch Barcelona. And then that year where we had gotten relegated to the Europa League for the second year in a row, Xavi managed to win La Liga. And then the next year, we made it out of the group, and then we made it all the way to a quarterfinal, and we were going to the second leg at home, up 3-2 against PSG. And then Araujo got a red card. And then we lost 4-1 at home after being up 3-2. We lost 6-4 on aggregate, and Dembele scored, celebrated, Adam Madruic. And it was yet again looking like there was no hope. It looked like a fluke season. The fans wanted Xavi out. The press wanted Xavi out. Xavi wanted out. Laporta begged him to stay. Xavi agreed to stay. And then Laporta kicked him out. So we were looking kind of like Madrid looks like right now. They fought in the locker room. Did you know that? They fought in the locker room. WWE. Ay, 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 ay. But then we would go on to appoint someone who was familiar with Barcelona. Hansi Flick. He was too familiar. But now he would be our manager, and we would start the season great. And it would be probably our best season in the last 5 years, probably. We won a La Liga, we won the Super Cup, we made it to the semifinals, and played a hell of a semifinal game before Fratesi in extra time just shattered the dreams of every Barca fan. I thought we won. I before Fratesi scored, before Acerbi scored, when Rafinha scored in like the 88th minute, I had already I was watching in the living room and I had run out of the living room and I thought we had won. And then Acerbi scored in like the 90 plus 9 and then we went to extra time and then Fratesi. But then we would go on, like I said, to win La Liga and it looked like a good season. So we went into the season with high hopes. We didn't really do much in the transfer market except for one really important signing. We brought in Juan Garcia. Because that Chesney guy was terrible. I don't know why you all liked him. Everybody loved him. He was dog shit. It was really bad. Didn't save anything. When we conceded, when Thuram scored in the first minute against Inter, he looks over at Hansi Flick and was like, "What do you want me to do? I haven't smoked yet. I need to smoke to play. I haven't smoked yet. You won't let me smoke, and you want me to save." He said that to him. Yeah, he said it. Trust me. You can trust me. But then we would go on into the season, and it wouldn't be a bad season. We would win a Super Cup. We would win La Liga. We would lose in the quarterfinals to Atleti, who also knocked us out of the Copa del Rey in the same month, like just a few weeks before. Because I guess we conceded 4 goals in the first game, and I guess the high line just stayed. Hansi Flick saw us concede 4 because of a high line and was like, we're playing again 3 more times this month. High line, just score everything. And I think that those games showed where one of those weaknesses is. I think one of our goals actually came from us having a poor six. Casado just gave up all the way. And then that brings me to my next point is through those years, we still had a 9, right? We don't have that anymore. Lewandowski, he's in Chicago. Our starting striker is Ferran Torres. He's great. He misses the easy ones and the hard ones. And we still don't have number 6. Frankie De Jong's been doing us a favor for a long time, playing that 6 role, but he's not. He's not a CDM. He's a box to box midfielder. And Marc Casado, like I just said, has no ball security. He loses the ball a lot. He doesn't. He wins it decently enough, but he loses it so much. And since Busquets left, we haven't had one. I think our best bet was Marc Bernal, and yeah, is he going to be ready after injury this year? I think if he is ready after injury, and if his development is on track and his recovery is on track, and Hansi Flick trusts him in that role, I think he'll do great. And that's what we really need to defend against that transition better, is just a 6 who can cut out those passes and step to the man before he can make that pass behind the line. And then we also just need to stop playing a high line. We can still do the high line, just we don't need to be in their half when they're in like the midfield. The ball is in the midfield and we're pressing them in their half. Like we can drop it a little bit. But I think more importantly than the 6 is the striker. We can't start Ferran Torres. Please. Laporta. No. And I know we've been making moves, we inquired about Joao Pedro. Chelsea told us no. We tried for Harry Kane. He said no. I guess apparently our only hope is Julian Alvarez, who's great. He fit at Barcelona amazing. He presses, fit well into that system. But he's 150 million. Ronaldinho came for 20 million. Or I think 30 million. And I know it's not the same, that was 20 years ago. The market's inflated, but 150 million. Ay, 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 ay. I think there's some alternatives if we can't get him. I think at this point, Laporta is just set on him. And if he comes, he better score like 40 goals or something, because 150 million, that's a lot. And there's some cheaper alternatives if we can't lock down that deal. I think my front runners would be either Šeško at Man United, which I think is great. I think he's great. I think, in the fact that the world lacks those world-class 9s outside of Kane, Mbappe, and Haaland, I think Šeško has the opportunity to join that tier. Obviously not right now, but in a few years, and I think he would be a great investment for the future. I think Benfica's striker, I think his name is Palvedes. Yeah, at least that's how they say it in the French commentary. But he's great. I watch a few Benfica. He's pretty good. And he'd be a lot cheaper, and he's got that clinicality. He's kind of that penalty box striker. He's a bit old. I think he's like 25, 27, but he'd be pretty good. And he's pretty cheap. I think he's only valued around 40 to 50 million, 45, 55, something like that. So he definitely would be a lot more economic, considering we just spent 80 million on Anthony Gordon. Which I'll have to admit, I haven't seen much of Anthony Gordon play. I saw him play against us. He was all right. I've seen him playing the World Cup right now. He gave 2 assists the other day I don't think it was against Mexico. He started that game. There was a game where he came on and gave 2 assists, whatever the game before Mexico was in the round of 32. And I think Anthony, he's all right. He presses very well. I think he's going to do great at that, but where is he going to play? He's going to be on the bench. He's a depth player, which there's nothing wrong with that. I think he's a great depth player. And I think Rashford's release clause or Rashford's buy option was only like 30 or 40 million. I think Rashford is way better than Anthony Gordon. Even though Rashford doesn't press, Anthony Gordon doesn't score. I don't know. Well, I think it's left to see. He's pretty fast, which I think is going to do good on that left-hand side. But let's see how he does this year. I don't want to jump ahead of myself and say he's going to be terrible and then he ends up putting up a decent season, because I said the same thing about Rashford. I said Rashford was going to suck, and he ended up doing very well. So I think we'll have to see this season how it plays out. But I'm gonna stand on the fact that 80 million is way too much for Anthony Gordon. You should have, if you're gonna spend that kind of money, you should have just kept Rashford. That none of that matters if we can't fix that high line and we don't just start playing to our opposition a little bit more. I get Hansi Flick wants to be the guy who imposes his system on everyone else, and you can still do that. But you can just drop just a little bit. Just drop them a little bit. The high line was perfect in year one because nobody had a clue. We had like we when that El Clasico we caught them offsides like what 20 times. There was like 20 offsides. It was a crazy stat, something like that, because nobody knew about it. But now everybody knows, and they're just holding that run, and we're just getting screwed on the counter. We are the worst team at defending transitions in all of Europe, and that is why we lost to Atletico Madrid. That is why we got knocked out of the Champions League. That's why we got knocked out of the Copa del Rey. And it's purely just Atletico Madrid. Atletico Madrid single-handedly made this season a failure. I think if we didn't have to play Atletico Madrid, I think if we had to play a different team, which I still think we are second tier when it comes to the European giants right now. I think at the top is Bayern, PSG, and Arsenal, and then we're underneath them. But I still think we could have scrounged out a win. It would have been a good game. But Atletico Madrid, like, it's our kryptonite. And I think that stubbornness is what's going to keep us from winning the Champions League this year. On top of us not having a nine, on top of us still trying to figure out that sixth position, and our injury troubles. It just, if Lamine Yamal can play an entire season and he can keep it in his pants, I think we'll do great. And I think if Balde stays healthy, I think if Bernal comes back and recovers well, and he stays healthy, Pedri stays healthy, Rafinha. If Rafinha gets injured, just the season is over. Just call it. Turn in the kits and just go home. Because as much as I think Pedri is the soul of this team, and as much as I think Lamine Yamal is who wins us games, and Rafinha scores the goals, and especially if you don't have a striker, we're gonna have to rely on Rafinha tucking inside a lot because I'll tell you this right now, will not get the job done in Europe. He in La Liga, sure, but I mean, I think if I go out right now to a Sunday league game, I could find a striker that could get the job done in La Liga. What matters is the Champions League, and Ferran Torres is not a Champions League caliber player. Speaking of La Liga and the Champions League, I I would say we're favorites to win La Liga again this year, despite certain teams' attempts to bring in old men. They fight in the locker room, like not just like yell it. Like he Chouameni he sent him to the hospital. Chouameni sent his teammate Valverde to the hospital. Oh, dude. That's his captain, by the way. They don't even have a captain. That's his captain. Could you imagine if back in the day something like that happened? No, you think they would hit Ramos? That club is so screwed, man. All jokes aside, I think Jose Mourinho does have great potential to steady the ship, but it could also just end up being the Kardashians all over again, and I cannot wait. Cannot wait to see what comes out this year. Other teams in the Liga, I mean, Pellegrini's Real Betis are, I think they're a strong side. I don't think they're going to win La Liga, but I think they have the ability to take points off some in some big games. I think they might end up deciding who wins La Liga, as well as Villarreal. I think Iñaki, I can't remember his last name, but his first name's Iñaki, the coach of Villarreal. That team is really strong, and they're also gonna. I think who wins La Liga is gonna depend a lot on how they do against those two teams throughout the year. Copa del Rey, I mean, I think we're favorites for it as well, as long as we stay out of the way of Atleti. Even though I think Atleti are gonna be terrible this year, they're always hard to predict, but I think they're gonna be terrible. I don't want to play them. They are our kryptonite. Them and Inter Milan, keep them away from me. Any team that plays on the counter, just stay far away. I think even if we get a six, I think even if we drop the high line, I just don't want to play against teams that play the counter because that's what plays well against Hansi Flick system. I'm good, man. Just stay there. We'll stay here, right? In terms of Europe, as long as they don't play against each other, Bayern, PSG, and Arsenal will end up in the semifinals again. Those three teams are just unreal. Uh, I think like the banter has to be put aside. Arsenal will up, and then PSG and Bayern, obviously that those two are just they're insane. I think a lot of people aren't respecting Man City enough. I think because they think, oh, Man City, Pep's gone, Enzo Maresca is going to need like to get used to the team. I think he's going to pick up exactly where Pep left off, and they'll be right back. Liverpool, I think it's a toss up. I think nobody should doubt them because I think Raul is a great manager and he did very well at Bournemouth. But I think, I don't know, with Mo Salah leaving and then Arne Slot leaving, just it's going to be a toss up how well they're going to be. But I think definitely don't doubt them. Cesc Fabregas and Como are, I'm calling it right now, are going to take points off of a big team this year, whether it be us, Real Madrid, Liverpool, Arsenal, Bayern, PSG. They're gonna win a game against somebody in the Champions League this year. It in the league phase they are going if they are not gonna go far in the tournament, but in the league phase they're gonna take points off of someone. I just hope it won't be us because I really don't want to play that extra game this year. I'm gonna go straight to the round of 16 because I'm scared. I think we have three three Champions League knockout wins in us, and that's across legs. So I don't see us making it past a quarterfinal this year. Maybe a semifinal. We're not making we're the Champions League will not be won by Barcelona this year. The final we won't be there. I think the semifinals a stretch. I see us going on in the quarterfinal this year. With all that being said, kind of talked about Barcelona not winning a Champions League. We have a bright future. The squad is young, the core is young. I think if we solidify a striker, we need a striker for some years to come. Um, we need a six because that position is just we don't need to buy one necessarily. If we could sign Ayub Boadi, that would be great. But he's like Leo said, they're asking like 100 million for him. He's worth that money. We don't have that money because I think the striker matters more. So we can't spend 150 million on Julian Alvarez and then 100 million Ayub Boadi. Just not gonna happen. I think now we would be decent replacement. But I think Mark Burnell would get the job done just fine if we just trust him and if he recovers well. And then we need everyone to stay. I mean, that goes across every team, but we depend on our stars so much in that they all depend on each other. We don't have players that when everybody else is gone, it's fine. They're going to carry the team. Like we need Lamine Yamal to be on his best, and we need Pedri to be on his best, and we need Rafinha to be at his best, and we need all three of them. All three of them need each other to be at their best for them to play at each other's best. If that makes sense. I think we win the Liga. I think we could also win the Copa del Rey, Champions League. Quarterfinal exit. Great striker. If we can get Julian Alvarez, honestly, I would rather get Papadas than Julian Alvarez because he's too expensive. I don't want to spend 150 million on a striker that might flop. Like, yes, he's been doing it in Champions League and he's been doing it in La Liga, but he's been doing it in a completely different system. We know he can press. He does it with Argentina, but he hasn't done it in Hansi Flick's system. He hasn't done it in that sort of system. So I think it's a toss up. I think 150 million too much. If we can find someone a little bit cheaper, that'd be great. Maybe we could try for Joao Pedro again. As long as he can't be over 80 million. If we spend over 80 million for Joao Pedro, it's over. I think the future looks bright. I think Barca fans need a reality check. We are not winning a Champions League. And I think Lamine Yamal needs to prove himself in big games this year because he didn't do it last year. In the big game, he plays good, but it's just he plays amazing in the big games. He doesn't score. He needs to up his production, whether it's goals or assists. He needs, we can't be comparing him to the likes of Haaland and Mbappe and calling him the best player in the world when he just does not provide the goal contributions, right? And you can say, oh, Dembele is the favorite for Ballon d'Or, and he doesn't provide goal contributions either. Dembele's winning Champions Leagues, so he can provide whatever the fuck he wants to provide. He's winning Champions Leagues. We're not. So if we're gonna put Lamine Yamal in that conversation, he needs to be getting those goal contributions, and if he's not, we need to stop talking about him like that. That being said, I hope everybody enjoyed the video. I've got more videos coming out soon. I'm gonna do a video about my overall predictions for the Champions League in general and go a bit more in depth than I did this video, and then a video about the World Cup and reviewing it once it's over. As of right now, the quarterfinals haven't been played yet. and tomorrow Morocco plays France. So